First Nations Leadership Councils consists of the political leaders of three organizations, Union of BC Indian Chiefs, First Nations Summit, and the BCAFN, and we meet regularly, and we do meet with provincial government regularly. Very often we come together on an issue and we issue a joint statement or a joint letter, and sometimes we agree to disagree. But on climate change and global warming, there's no disagreement. The First Nations believe that we have a peculiar place to occupy at the front of the struggle to bring climate change under control. We believe that our voice is unique. We have thousands of years of history in British Columbia. We know about forest fires, we know about flooding. So I think that our perspective is a unique one.
But if you look at rural BC, I think there's a real connection with the land. Part of the problem with climate change is that disconnect, not knowing how you affect not only the land but also your carbon footprint. So rural areas, small communities, small First Nations communities are more often on the land, are more often reliant on the issues of the landscape. And this is why it's so important that decisions such as free, prior, informed consent comes back to First Nations communities, comes back to local governments, where collectively you can get consent for a project.
Well, BC had the most increased climate crisis, the heat dome, the wildfires, and the flooding. And if BC, through the First Nations Action Plan on climate crisis, if we don't do the work, who's going to do it? We all have to do it now. And there's urgency in the climate crisis action that's needed by First Nations, by municipalities, by government, by industry. And we all have to work towards that because we don't have the luxury of time anymore. We all have to be able to get to net zero, not yesterday, but we have to work at it today, each and every day. We need to be able to get the education and the awareness in the schools at the very earliest age so that we can be able to prepare not just for the mindsets we need to shift in regards to zero waste and zero emissions. We have to be able to say how our lifestyles and how we do things every day are going to change, because that's where the tremendous change is needed in regards to agriculture, in regards to industry, in regards to how we power our buildings, what fuel we use in our vehicles. It's multifaceted. It should be in the framework of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and the foundation should be our inherent Taliban rights.
If you look at the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, it talks about sovereignty and self-determination. Many First Nations communities, such as the North, that are really dependent on forestry, natural resources, which have a real effect on climate change. I think those decisions at those local community levels need to be heard, and many First Nations have an ability and know about the lands.